So today I thought I would do something different. I have invited Sophie to join me on the channel. Hi, Sophie. Welcome to Preach from the Housetops. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
We're diving into an interesting talk that was given by Peter Price titled Happy Are Those Who Have Not Seen and Yet Believe. It's based on that well-known verse in John 20:29, the words Jesus said to Thomas after the resurrection. Because you have seen me, you have believed. Happy are those who have not seen and yet believe.
Right. The speaker uses that verse to draw a lesson for Jehovah's Witnesses about following direction from the organization, even when they don't fully understand it. Essentially, he's saying, don't be like Thomas. Have faith even when you can't see or make sense of everything.
Exactly. On the surface, it sounds encouraging. Have faith, trust God, don't panic when you don't understand everything. But when you listen closely, the logic behind the comparison gets interesting. Let's unpack it.
Today's scriptural text highlights the importance of following Jehovah's direction and respecting those taking the lead, while avoiding murmuring, which cost the nation of Israel as they rejected Moses and lost Jehovah's favor. However, there are times when we may not fully understand the direction we receive, and we may have questions. When we express them, does this mean we are murmuring? Well, to help us answer this question, we would like to discuss the theme, Happy are those who have not seen and yet believe. These are the words that Jesus spoke to the Apostle Thomas, recorded at John chapter 20, verse 29. Now, why did Jesus say this to Thomas, and how can his words help us today when we have uncertainties or when others that we serve with express theirs?
The whole structure of the talk works by comparing two situations. First, Thomas, he wanted physical proof before believing that Jesus had risen. And second, modern believers, who might want clear evidence or explanations before following organizational direction.
Right? So the speaker basically says, Thomas wanted to see before believing. Don't be like Thomas. Believe first. Trust that the direction from the organization comes from Jehovah. So the underlying message is obedience first, understanding later, maybe never.
Yeah, that's the heart of it. And to be fair, from within the witness worldview, it's totally coherent. They believe Jehovah directs his organization through appointed men, so trusting the direction is an act of faith in God.
At times, might we feel a bit like Thomas? When we hear about a change in our assignment, maybe a simplification in the work that our department handles, we might wonder, well, what does this mean for me? Am I still useful? All of us at times need reassurance that we are still appreciated and valued. Or perhaps we find out that we have a new overseer, and we might think to ourselves, he is so young. I know it's important to train younger brothers, but how much experience does he have? Jesus has just appeared to several of his disciples after his resurrection. But we read in verse 24 that Thomas was not present on those occasions. Let's pick up the account there in John chapter 20. We'll start by reading verse 25. So the other disciples were telling him, we have seen the Lord. But now Thomas expresses his doubts. He said to them, unless I see in his hands the print of the nails and stick my finger into the print of the nails and stick my hand into his side, I will never believe it. Now, despite Jesus telling Thomas earlier that he was preparing a place for him and that he would come back, this statement clearly shows that Thomas has needed personal, physical evidence to overcome his skepticism. He is basically saying, I will believe it when I see it. Have we ever experienced a moment when we felt that we needed proof to believe something? Maybe someone who hurt us has apologized and promised to change, or a family member who left us or who left the truth has now returned to Jehovah. Now, we understand the recent direction we have received in the series of study articles in the Watchtower on the importance of Jehovah's mercy and that we need to be forgiving. But we still feel hurt, and we don't know if that person has really changed. So we might find ourselves thinking the same as Thomas. I'll believe it when I see it. Now, these examples highlight that we may have uncertainties that cause questions to come up in our minds. These feelings are normal, but if left unchecked, they could lead us to question the decisions made by those taking the lead, and we could begin to murmur. So to avoid this, we can draw valuable lessons from how Jesus responded to Thomas and how this helped Thomas to overcome his strong feelings, his doubts.
Okay, so he says, these feelings are normal, but if left unchecked, they could lead us to question the decisions made by those taking the lead. But here's where the logic starts to stretch. The analogy, comparing Jesus' words to organizational direction, is not exactly one-to-one. In the Bible account, Thomas was doubting Jesus, the Son of God, about his resurrection. That's a divine issue, not an administrative one.
Exactly. Thomas's proof question was about something supernatural and salvific. Is Jesus really alive? But in the talk, the doubts are about human leadership. Things like new assignments, changes in procedures, or a new overseer. Those are organizational issues, not divine ones.
So when you take the leap from faith in the resurrected Christ to faith in the governing body, you're switching categories. That's what logicians call a false analogy. It sounds persuasive emotionally, but logically, the comparison doesn't hold up.
Jesus did not deal with Thomas in a stern way, telling him, "You have doubts again, Thomas? Where were you last week when I appeared before the other disciples?" No, he lovingly helped him to overcome his feelings of uncertainty. And how did Thomas respond? Notice verse 28. Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." He immediately expressed his faith. His response revealed his true motives behind his feelings. He wasn't murmuring or rejecting those taking the lead. He needed reassurance. For this reason, Jesus tells him the words of our theme in verse 29, "Because you have seen me, have you believed? Happy are those who have not seen and yet believe." Basically, he is saying to him, Thomas, you won't always have all the answers, but if you strengthen your faith and trust in me, you'll be happy. You will believe it even when you don't see it. Now, this strengthened Thomas, and he continued his faithful service. Now, what is a lesson for us? Well, we are grateful for all the direction we receive, and we have complete confidence that Jehovah cares for us in our assignments. But there will be times when we will feel a little uncertain, which may cause us to have questions. It's important to remember that this isn't necessarily a sign that something's wrong with our faith and that we're going to begin murmuring. No, sometimes like Thomas, we simply need a little extra encouragement and reassurance. And Jesus' response to Thomas is a powerful example of patience and love. He provided exactly what Thomas needed to believe.
Another interesting thing going on is the language. Throughout the talk, the speaker uses Jehovah's direction interchangeably with organizational direction or theocratic direction. That's what we'd call equivocation, using one word in two different senses as if they were the same.
Yeah, it's subtle but powerful. Once Jehovah's direction and the organization's direction are treated as identical, any questioning of the organization automatically feels like questioning God. And if you question God, well, that's dangerous territory.
Exactly. It's an effective rhetorical move. It closes the gap between divine authority and human authority, but it's also what makes the logic circular. The reasoning goes, this direction comes from Jehovah, so you should trust it. And we know it comes from Jehovah because you trust it. See the loop?
Right, it's circular reasoning. The claim proves itself.
We have spirit-directed men who shepherd us and give us good direction. And reassuring friends that we can express our feelings openly and who will patiently listen to us, but also help us to align our thoughts and feelings to theocratic direction. In these ways, Jehovah gives us the reassurance we need right when we need it, and we can imitate his example when those we serve with express their uncertainties and doubts to us. We also learn a valuable lesson from Thomas. Once he received this reassurance with his words, he immediately expressed his faith, not allowing these doubts and questions to continue, which could have led to murmuring. So when we pray to Jehovah and he provides us with the reassurance we need, we put our faith and trust in him. Our response to his direction will reveal our true motives. So let us strengthen our faith and trust in Jehovah, Jesus, and those taking the lead, and support and reassure one another with the same patience and love that Jesus showed Thomas. When we do, we will avoid the negative mindset that could lead to murmuring, and we will be able to agree with Jesus' words to Thomas, "Happy are those who have not seen and yet believe."
There's also a subtle emotional undercurrent. The idea that if you let your questions go unchecked, they could lead to murmuring, and murmuring leads to losing Jehovah's favor. So there's a slippery slope built in there.
That's true. It gives the listener two choices. Either trust and be happy like Thomas after he believed, or doubt and risk becoming like Israel when they murmured against Moses. So while the talk is framed positively, it actually discourages open questioning.
It's a soft kind of social control, not harsh, but persuasive. You walk away thinking, okay, it's normal to have doubts, but I'd better not dwell on them. So you suppress the questions rather than explore them.
So, if we boil it all down, here's the chain of reasoning in the talk. 1. Thomas doubted Jesus until he saw proof. 2. Jesus said it's better to believe without seeing. 3. We might doubt organizational direction. 4. Therefore, we should trust it even when we don't see proof.
And that works only if you accept one big unstated assumption, that the organization's direction is the same thing as Jesus' direction. If you question that link, the whole analogy falls apart.
It comes down to this, friends. Do I really believe that Jehovah is directing this organization today?
Exactly. From a theological perspective, the message is comforting. From a logical perspective, it's circular. It's a great example of how analogies can carry a lot of emotional power, but also quietly shift categories without you noticing.
And that's why analyzing talks like this isn't about attacking anyone's faith. It's about understanding how persuasion works, especially when religious language blends divine and human authority. Once you see that structure, you can listen with a clearer mind.
Beautifully said. So the next time you hear someone say, "Happy are those who have not seen and yet believe," it might be worth asking, believe in what exactly and whom? Well, thanks a lot for joining me on the channel and helping me analyze this talk. We should do it again sometime.
Well, let's see what your viewers have to say about that.